Admiral Park stood motionless on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Handshake *, his weathered face betraying no emotion as he watched the massive alien fleet appear at the edge of the solar system. The Vexer ships materialized one by one, each arrival sending ripples of tension through the human crew. These weren't the sleek, gleaming vessels of human science fiction. The alien warships resembled obsidian arrowheads, dark, angular, and menacing. Their black hulls seemed to devour light rather than reflect it, creating unsettling voids against the backdrop of stars. Over 300 ships now. Admiral, reported Officer Choi, his voice steady despite the implications of what they faced. Still emerging. Their formation suggests military precision. Park nodded once. Earth's intelligence had warned this might happen. For decades, deep space monitoring stations had detected signs of the Vexer Federation's expansion. Their path of conquest through neighboring systems followed a predictable pattern. Arrival, ultimatum, demonstration of force, then either surrender or annihilation. No species had successfully resisted them. The Handshake was small by comparison, a diplomatic vessel with minimal weapons, crewed by 38 humans selected for this historic first contact. They represented humanity's official face, though Park knew they were far from alone. Admiral, Lieutenant Kim's voice cut through his thoughts. She sat at the communications station, her dark hair pulled back tightly, eyes fixed on her console. "They're hailing us." The bridge crew stiffened. This was the moment they had trained for. On screen, Park ordered, straightening his uniform jacket. The main display flickered, and then the face of the Vexer appeared. The alien's features were reptilian, scaled skin in mottled grays and blues, with vertical pupils in yellow eyes. Bony ridges framed its face, and when it opened its mouth, Park glimpsed rows of needle-like teeth. This was General Tak, as Earth's intelligence had predicted. The alien's face contorted into what might have been intended as a smile, but looked more like a predatory grimace. "Humans of Earth," General Tak spoke, his voice translated through the ship's systems into flat, emotionless English. "I am General Tak of the Vexer Federation. Your primitive monitoring systems have no doubt detected our arrival. We have studied your species and find you lacking. Your technological development is insufficient. Your planetary defenses are minimal. Your species is divided by petty conflicts and borders." Park maintained a neutral expression, though he noticed Captain Baz's hand tighten on the armrest of her chair. "The Vexer Federation brings order to chaos," Tak continued. "Your species will surrender within 24 Earth hours, or we will demonstrate our power. After our demonstration, you will have 1 additional hour to reconsider before we begin planetary cleansing procedures." Admiral Park took a measured breath before responding. He bowed slightly, a gesture that his cultural advisors had suggested might be interpreted as respectful across species. "General Tak of the Vexer Federation, I am Admiral Park of Earth's United Defense Council. We appreciate your generous timeframe to consider your offer. As a diplomatic representative, I request permission to consult with Earth's leadership before providing our formal response." The alien stared, clearly assessing Park's words for deception or weakness. "Permission granted," General Tak finally replied. "Be advised that any attempt to mount a defense or evacuate population centers will be met with immediate action. We are monitoring all planetary activities." "Understood," Park replied evenly. "We will contact you within the allocated time." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. "They're exactly as intelligence predicted," Captain Ba said quietly. "Arrogant, convinced of their superiority." Admiral Park nodded, then activated his secure communication device. The small metallic disc in his palm projected a holographic interface visible only to him. He entered a 12-digit code followed by a verbal command. "Initiate Protocol Thunderhead." The system beeped once in confirmation. Park knew that across Earth, and throughout the solar system, This command was now triggering the most extensive military response in human history. Communications, prepare a system-wide data burst on encrypted channels, Park ordered. Tactical, begin passive scanning of the Vexer fleet. Engineering, initiate stealth systems, and prepare for possible rapid withdrawal. Lieutenant Kim swiveled in her chair. Admiral, Earth Security Council is requesting immediate conference. Put them through to my ready room, Park replied. Captain Bai, you have the bridge. As he moved toward his private chamber, Officer Jin approached with a data tablet. Admiral, preliminary scans of the Vexer fleet show they match our intelligence projections. Their ships appear to use a form of plasma-based weaponry and quantum shielding. Their main command vessel is positioned here. Jin pointed to a larger ship near the center of the alien formation. Thank you, officer, Park replied. Continue analysis and prepare defensive simulations. In his ready room, the faces of Earth's Security Council appeared on the wall display. 7 men and women representing Earth's unified government looked grim but determined. Admiral Park, we've received your alert. Counselor Han began without preamble. Protocol Thunderhead is now active across all systems. How do you assess the Vexeri's immediate intentions? They're following their established pattern, Park replied. They believe we're weak and divided. They expect us to panic, possibly attempt some desperate defensive action that would justify immediate attack. And your recommendation? Asked Counselor Lee. We play to their expectations, Park said firmly. We show fear. We begin visible but limited defensive preparations. Meanwhile, we complete full activation of our hidden assets while maintaining the illusion of vulnerability. The counselors nodded in agreement. The Sol defense grid is powering up in stealth mode, Counselor Han reported. The Mars installations will be combat-ready in 6 hours. Jupiter and Saturn defensive platforms are already operational. The Deep Space Fleet has been recalled. What about civilian preparations? Park asked. Underground shelters are being quietly filled, Counselor Lee answered. Priority evacuations from coastal and high-density areas have begun under the guise of emergency drills. The public narrative remains controlled. News services are reporting an unconfirmed contact event to prevent panic. Good, Park nodded. The Vexeri must believe their psychological warfare is working. He returned to the bridge to find the crew efficiently preparing the ship for potential combat, despite its diplomatic designation. The handshake was far more than it appeared. Admiral, Lieutenant Kim called out, we're receiving transmissions from several Earth nations directly to the Vexeri fleet. They appear to be offering independent surrender terms. Park allowed himself a small smile. Perfect. Our division is our best disguise. For decades, humanity had known this day might come. Earth's long history of internal conflicts had taught humans the art of deception, misdirection, and overwhelming response. While the Vexeri saw a planet divided by borders and ideologies, they failed to understand that these apparent divisions masked a unified purpose. As Admiral Park looked out at the menacing alien fleet, he felt not fear, but a cold certainty. The Vexeri had encountered many species, conquered many worlds, but they had never faced humans before. They had no concept of what overkill truly meant in human terms. Send word to Earth Command, Park instructed. Tell them the Vexeri have taken the bait. They believe we are weak, frightened, and divided. He paused, watching the alien ships on the view screen. Let's maintain that illusion for exactly 23 hours and 55 minutes. Science Officer Lee bent closer to her monitoring console aboard the Vexeri flagship *Dominance*. The readings made no sense. She adjusted the sensors, recalibrated the detection parameters, and ran the scan again. The result remained the same, unusual energy patterns emanating from somewhere beyond Mars, faint but unmistakable. General Tak, she said, turning to address the imposing figure at the center of the command bridge. I'm detecting unusual energy patterns from beyond Mars. General Tak didn't bother to look at her. His attention remained fixed on the primary tactical display, showing Earth and its immediate orbital space. The blue-green planet rotated slowly, dotted with white clouds and surrounded by what the Vexer considered pathetically minimal defensive capabilities. Irrelevant, he dismissed her with a casual wave of his scaled hand. Our scans show minimal orbital defenses and a laughably small fleet. These humans are primitive. Lee hesitated. In the 16 planetary conquests she had participated in, she had learned to trust her instincts. Something about these readings troubled her, but questioning the superior officer, especially one as decorated and feared as General Tak, could end her career or worse. Perhaps, she suggested carefully, we should investigate these anomalies before. Did you not hear me, science officer? General Tak turned his yellow eyes toward her now, the vertical pupils narrowing to thin slits. Return to your assigned analysis of their weapons capabilities. That data, at least, might prove useful in determining how quickly we can complete this conquest. Yes, General, Lee said, bowing her head in submission. Across the bridge, Commander Jun studied the historical and cultural information streaming across his tactical display. 16 years as the Vexer's chief intelligence analyst had taught him to look for weaknesses in enemy civilizations. The humans, from what he could determine, presented many. Their history shows they cannot even unify their own planet, Jun noted, scrolling through reports of Earth's numerous nations, languages, and ongoing conflicts. This will be an easy conquest. General Tak made a sound of satisfaction. As expected. How are they responding to our ultimatum? Precisely as predicted, Commander Jun replied. Their global communication networks show increased activity consistent with panic. Several of their nation-states have independently contacted us offering surrender terms and cooperation. He paused, amused. Some are even offering information about rival nations in exchange for preferential treatment. General Take's mouth stretched into what passed for a smile among his species. Divide and conquer. Except they've already divided themselves for us. Prepare a first strike demonstration. Target their largest city. We'll show them a fraction of our power. Should we not wait the full 24 hours we promised? Asked Commander Jun. Why? Tak laughed coldly. To give them more time to cower. The sooner they understand their position, the fewer resources we'll need to waste. Science Officer Lee returned to her console. Troubled but silent. The energy readings had changed again, now fluctuating in patterns that suggested deliberate modulation rather than natural phenomena. Whatever was causing them was not just active, but responding to the Vexeri presence. On the dark side of Earth's moon, far from the Vexeri's main scanning focus, Director Sung stood in a control center that officially didn't exist. The facility had been built 30 years earlier, buried deep beneath the lunar regolith, its power signature masked by advanced dampening technology. Around him, hundreds of technicians and military personnel worked with quiet efficiency. There was no panic, no fear, just the methodical execution of a plan decades in the making. Lunar Defense Grid now at 80% capacity, reported Colonel Min, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface. All platforms maintaining stealth protocols. The Vexeri sensors are probing but haven't detected us. Director Sung nodded. And Mars operations. Proceeding on schedule. The transformation is 63% complete. Defensive capabilities will be online in approximately 4 hours. Offensive systems will follow 2 hours after that. Sung turned to the largest display in the center, showing the position of every Vexeri ship in the solar system. The alien armada remained clustered near Earth's orbit, confident in their superior position. They had no idea what awaited them. What about our deep space assets? Sung asked. A young officer named Kang looked up from his station. The stealth ship Shadow has cleared Neptune's orbit. Captain Hyun reports all systems nominal. They're proceeding to the designated coordinates. Director Sung allowed himself a small smile. For over 50 years, humanity had prepared for this moment. While maintaining the appearance of division and limited space capabilities, Earth's unified defense forces had secretly built the most extensive defensive network in human history. The public failed Mars terraforming project had been a cover for constructing massive underground military installations. The scientific outposts on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn concealed planet-killer weaponry. The commercial mining operations in the asteroid belt housed fleets of stealth fighters. The Vexer are scanning Mars now, Colonel Min reported. Their sensors are focused on the surface installations. Good, Sung replied. Let them see exactly what they expect to see. Captain Hyun guided the stealth ship Shadow silently past Neptune's orbit. The vessel was a masterpiece of human engineering, virtually undetectable, faster than anything in Earth's publicly acknowledged fleet, and equipped with scanning technology capable of mapping enemy territory in unprecedented detail. Status report, Hyun ordered, her voice calm despite the weight of their mission. Lieutenant Yoon responded immediately. Stealth systems operating at 100%. No indication the Vexer have detected us. Quantum drives functioning normally. We'll reach the coordinates in approximately 6 hours. Hyun nodded, studying the display showing the Vexer home systems. Their destination. The Shadow carried Earth's most critical mission. While the Vexer focused on Earth, the Shadow would map their empire, identify critical infrastructure, and gather intelligence that could turn the tide if diplomacy failed. Any updates from Earth Command? Han asked. Yes, Captain, Communications Officer Du replied. Protocol Thunderhead is fully activated. All defense systems are coming online. The Vexer remain unaware. Captain Hyun thought of her family back on Earth, her aging parents, her younger sister who had just started university. The Vexer had conquered dozens of worlds, leaving devastation in their wake. They expected humans to be just another species to subjugate. They were wrong. Back on the Vexer flagship, Science Officer Lee couldn't dismiss her growing concerns. The energy readings had strengthened, and now she was detecting similar patterns from the vicinity of Jupiter and Saturn. General, she tried again. I believe we should allocate additional scanning resources to the outer system. The readings are irrelevant, General Tak snapped. Our focus is Earth. Their pathetic defenses and divided leadership make them vulnerable. Commander Jun has confirmed they're already negotiating amongst themselves to surrender. Yes, but enough, Tak growled. One more word about these supposed readings, and I'll have you removed from the bridge. Lee fell silent, returning to her console. She began a private analysis, routing the data through her personal systems rather than the main computer. As the results came in, her eyes widened. The energy signatures matched nothing in the Vexer database, suggesting technology beyond what humans should possess. Across the bridge, Commander Jun continued his cultural assessment. Their military history suggests a peculiar contradiction, he noted. They're surprisingly adaptive in conflict situations, but they've never unified their planetary defenses. Precisely why they'll fall easily, General Tak responded. Prepare the demonstration strike. Target their largest population center. Show them just 10% of a single destroyer's capability. As the Vexer war machine prepared to demonstrate its power, they remained oblivious to the vast network of defenses awakening throughout the solar system. They had no idea that Earth's apparent division was its greatest deception, or that Captain Hyun's Shadow was already mapping the route to their home systems. The humans had prepared for this moment for generations. The Vexer were about to learn what overkill truly meant. As the 24-hour deadline approached its final minutes, General Tak stood on the bridge of the Vexer flagship with the confident posture of a conqueror. He had overseen 16 successful planetary subjugations, and Earth would simply be number 17. The blue-green world rotated peacefully on the main view screen, seemingly unaware of its impending demonstration of Vexer might. Target locked on their largest population center, the weapons officer reported. New York City, estimated population, 20 million humans. General Tak nodded in satisfaction. Prepare to fire. 10% power only. We want them afraid, not annihilated. Not yet. The Vexari warships had positioned themselves in an attack formation, their black hulls absorbing the distant sunlight. Earth's meager defensive fleet, just 30 visible ships, had gathered protectively around their planet, but remained hopelessly outmatched. "Sir," Science Officer Lee spoke up from her monitoring station, her voice tight with concern. "I continue to detect unusual energy readings throughout the system. They've increased by 400% in the last hour." "Your persistence is becoming irritating, Science Officer," General Tak replied without looking at her. "After we complete this conquest, perhaps a reassignment to waste management would better suit your talents." Lee fell silent, but her fingers continued to work her console, tracking the increasing anomalies. Commander June approached the general. "Sir, we've received communications from 17 Earth nations offering immediate surrender. They request only that their own territories be spared from the demonstration." Typical of divided species, Tak said with a dismissive gesture, "They will learn unity under Vexari rule. Commence demonstration fire in 3 minutes." On the main tactical display, Earth's pitiful defenses remained unchanged. The few orbital platforms, the small fleet, the scattered ground-based weapons, all exactly as their initial scans had shown. The planet seemed almost unaware of its fate. Deep beneath the lunar surface, Colonel Jai stood in the central command hub of Earth's hidden defense network. Around him, hundreds of military personnel from every nation on Earth worked in perfect coordination. Giant displays showed the position of every Vexari ship and every hidden human defensive asset. The colonel checked the time. 23 hours and 57 minutes had passed since the Vexari ultimatum. "All systems report ready, Colonel," his executive officer said. "Defense grid fully powered. Mars installations combat ready. Jupiter and Saturn platforms standing by. Stealth fleet in position." Colonel G nodded and opened a secure communication channel to the entire Earth defense network. "This is Colonel Jai. Humanity has prepared for this moment for 50 years. The Vexari believe us weak and divided. They expect fear and submission. Instead, they will learn the meaning of human unity and determination." He paused, looking at the tactical display showing the Vexari fleet preparing to fire on New York City. "To cloak on my mark." He drew in a deep breath. Now, on the Vexari flagship, Science Officer Lee's console suddenly erupted with warnings. Her eyes widened in disbelief as the sensor readings spiked across all frequencies. "General," she shouted, protocol forgotten in her shock. Massive energy signatures appearing throughout the system. General Tak turned to reprimand her, but his words died in his throat as the main tactical display began changing before his eyes. Across the solar system, thousands of previously invisible satellites shimmered into existence, their stealth fields deactivating in perfect synchronization. They surrounded the Vexari fleet in multiple defensive layers, each bristling with weapons that had no match in the Vexari technological database. The supposedly failed mining facilities on Mars split open like enormous metal flowers blooming, revealing massive weapon emplacements that made the Vexari planetary bombardment systems seem primitive by comparison. The moons of Jupiter, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto suddenly showed enormous energy signatures as concealed installations revealed themselves. Giant cannon emplacements, each capable of destroying multiple capital ships with a single shot, rotated to target the Vexari fleet. Even more shocking, the rings of Saturn parted to reveal hidden battle stations, their designs unlike anything the Vexari had encountered in their conquests across multiple star systems. "What is happening?" General Tak demanded, his confident demeanor crumbling. "Where did these come from?" Before anyone could answer, a new fleet of human ships appeared from behind Earth's moon. Sleek, deadly vessels that had been concealed by technology the Vexari couldn't detect. Unlike the primitive ships the Vexari had observed earlier, These were clearly advanced war machines. Science Officer Lee worked frantically at her console, trying to make sense of the flood of new data. "General, they've surrounded us completely," she reported, her voice hollow with horror. "These installations, they've been here all along. The weapons they're revealing. Some operate on principles our science doesn't understand." General Tak stared at the tactical display, now showing a solar system bristling with human weapons, all aimed directly at his fleet. His mind refused to accept what his eyes were seeing. "Impossible," he whispered. Aboard the Earth flagship Defender Admiral Park watched as the protection that had hidden humanity's true defensive capabilities fell away. Decades of preparation, trillions in resources, and the unified effort of a planet that appeared divided to outsiders, all revealed in a single moment. All defense systems online and targeting Vexer vessels. Captain Bay reported. Mars Defense Command reports weapons systems hot. Jupiter platforms have targeting solutions on their capital ships. Saturn ring defenses standing by. Admiral Park nodded. "Open a channel to the Vexer flagship." When General Tech's face appeared on screen, Admiral Park noted with satisfaction that the alien's confident demeanor had vanished. The general's yellow eyes were wide with shock, and his scaled skin had paled to an ashen gray. "General Tak," Admiral Park said calmly, "your 24 hours are up. You offered us a choice between surrender and destruction. We are now offering you the same choice." On the Vexer command ship, General Tak struggled to comprehend the trap his fleet had wandered into. The tactical display showed thousands of human weapons locked onto his ships. Their energy signatures suggested destructive capabilities beyond what his vessels could withstand. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Your species is divided. Your technology is primitive. We monitored your planet for years." Admiral Park's expression remained calm on the viewscreen. "What you saw is what we wanted you to see. Humanity learned long ago that appearing weak can be a strategic advantage. Our nations compete and quarrel, yes, but we unite against external threats." Commander June frantically reviewed the cultural data, his earlier confidence shattered. The historical records, they show constant conflict, technological limitations. "Carefully managed information," Admiral Park replied. "While we allowed you to see our divisions, we built this." He gestured to the now revealed defense network, together, in secret, for decades. Science Officer Lee spoke up from her station. "General, I've completed my analysis. Their weapons are locked on every ship in our fleet. The energy readings suggest they could obliterate us many times over." "Impossible," General Tak repeated, though the evidence surrounded him. "No species has ever." "Perhaps," Admiral Park interrupted, "you should recognize that you have never encountered humans before today." In the Lunar Command Center, Colonel G watched the exchange with grim satisfaction. The Vexer fleet, so confident moments ago, now sat immobilized, surrounded by weapons that could reduce them to atoms in seconds. "Quantum entanglement field generators standing by," his executive officer reported. "We can disable their weapons without destroying their ships on your command." Colonel G nodded. "Prepare the field, but hold. Let's see if they're wise enough to recognize their situation." On the Vexer flagship, General Tak struggled to form a response. His entire career, his species' expansion across multiple star systems, had been based on overwhelming force against inferior opponents. Never had they encountered a species that had so thoroughly prepared for their arrival. "You hid all this," he finally said. "Your entire system is a trap." Admiral Park's expression remained neutral. "Not a trap, General. A defense. One we hoped never to use, but prepared nonetheless. Humanity has a saying: hope for peace, prepare for war." General Tak looked to Commander June, who could only shake his head in disbelief. He looked to Science Officer Lee, who confirmed with a nod that their situation was as dire as it appeared. "Your demonstration of force has been noted, human," General Tak said, attempting to regain some dignity. "Perhaps we have misjudged your species." Indeed, Admiral Park replied. Now shall we discuss terms that don't involve the destruction of either of our peoples. As the humans' words hung in the air, General Tak realized that for the first time in Vexer history, they would be the ones considering surrender. The humans had not only prepared for this confrontation, they had redefined what it meant to be ready for war. They had shown the Vexari what overkill truly meant. The silence that followed Admiral Park's ultimatum lasted exactly 12 seconds. General Tak's scaled face showed an emotion no human had ever seen on a Vexari before. Fear. You have our attention, human. General Tak finally responded, his voice stripped of its earlier arrogance. But know that the Vexeri Federation does not surrender. We have conquered 16 worlds. Correction. Admiral Park interrupted calmly. You have temporarily occupied 16 worlds. That ends today. Before General Tak could respond, Admiral Park nodded to someone off-screen. A moment later, the human counterattack began with surgical precision. From the hidden platforms orbiting Mars, invisible waves of energy pulsed outward. These weren't destructive beams or explosive projectiles. They were something far more sophisticated. As the waves washed over the Vexeri fleet, ship after ship suddenly lost momentum, trapped in place by forces their sensors couldn't even properly detect. What is happening? General Tak demanded as his flagship shuddered and then went still. The engines roared at full power, yet the massive vessel didn't move an inch. Science Officer Lee worked frantically at her console. Some form of gravitational distortion field, she reported, her voice tight with professional fear. They've created localized gravity wells around each of our ships. We're immobilized. Commander June tried to activate the fleet's primary weapons. Nothing happened. Weapon systems not responding, he reported. Communications with the fleet are degrading. From Earth's moon, a cloud of what looked like silver mist emerged, splitting into hundreds of smaller clouds that enveloped each Vexeri vessel. These weren't ordinary particles, but highly advanced nanites, microscopic machines working in perfect coordination. Inside the Vexeri ships, critical systems began shutting down one by one. Weapons went offline. Propulsion failed. Even life support systems were affected, though not disabled completely. The humans were clearly being selective in their targets. They're inside our systems, a technician reported, panic rising in his voice. Some kind of microscopic machines. They're disabling everything but life support and minimal power. General Tak gripped the arms of his command chair, watching helplessly as his mighty armada was neutralized without a single destructive shot being fired. His mind struggled to comprehend how thoroughly they had been outmaneuvered. The tactical display showed something new. Dark spots appearing in space around his fleet. These weren't weapons firing or ships moving. Space itself seemed to be folding, creating circular openings that defied Vexeri understanding of physics. Artificial wormholes, Science Officer Lee whispered in disbelief. They've mastered controlled space-time manipulation. Through these spatial gateways, human warships emerge, appearing instantaneously alongside each Vexeri vessel. Each human ship positioned itself with precision, weapon systems clearly targeting critical areas of the Vexeri ships. On the main view screen of the Vexeri flagship, Admiral Park's face appeared again. He looked not triumphant but grimly determined. In human history, Admiral Park explained, his voice steady, those who survived learned to prepare beyond reason. What you see is but a fraction of our capability. General Tak found his voice, though it lacked its usual commanding tone. Your deception was impressive, but the Vexeri Empire stretches across 17 star systems. Once our homeworlds learn of this attack, they already know, Admiral Park said. At that moment, a new ship appeared near the flagship. Unlike the others, this vessel was sleek and dark, clearly designed for stealth rather than combat. The Shadow had returned from its mission. Captain Hyun stood on the bridge of the Shadow, watching as her ships collected data transferred to Earth Command. For 6 days, they had traveled faster than any Vexeri ship could track, mapping the entirety of the Vexeri Empire, their homeworlds, colony planets, military installations, and fleet positions. The information now displayed on screens throughout the human command network showed the Vexeri civilization in complete detail. Data transfer complete, Lieutenant Yun reported. Earth Command acknowledges receipt. Captain Hyun nodded. Their mission had been dangerous but crucial. What the Vexeri couldn't know, was that humans had spent decades studying their expansion, their tactics, their weaknesses. The Shadows mission was simply confirmation of what humanity had already suspected. On the Lunar Command Center, Colonel G reviewed the incoming data with quiet satisfaction. Transmit the Vexeri Empire schematics to Admiral Park, he ordered. Let General Tak see what we know. Back on the Vexeri flagship, the main tactical display suddenly changed. Instead of showing the immediate situation in Earth's solar system, it now displayed a complete map of the Vexeri Empire, their home planet, colony worlds, military bases, supply lines, and every vulnerability human intelligence had identified. Impossible. Commander Jun whispered, "This is classified information. How could they possibly?" While you were preparing your attack on our world, Admiral Park explained, "We were mapping yours. Captain Hyun's Shadow has just returned from your home systems with detailed scans. But this merely confirms what we already knew. We've been studying your expansion for decades." General Tak stared at the display in stunned silence. The humans had not only neutralized his fleet without firing a destructive shot, they had mapped his entire civilization's weaknesses. As you can see, Admiral Park continued, indicating specific points on the map. We've identified 37 critical vulnerabilities in your empire. Your central power distribution network on your homeworld, for instance, the atmospheric processors on your 3 main colony worlds, the central data repositories containing your species' collective knowledge. He paused, letting the implications sink in. We could eradicate your species, Admiral Park said softly. We could send ships like the Shadow through artificial wormholes directly to these targets. Your empire would collapse within days. Instead, we offer you the chance to learn. The bridge of the Vexeri flagship remained silent as the enormity of their situation became clear. Their supposedly invincible armada had been neutralized in minutes. Their empire lay exposed. And somehow, this species they had dismissed as primitive and divided had mastered technologies the Vexeri barely understood. Science Officer Lee found her voice first. "General, I've completed analysis of their gravitational technology alone. It's at least 3 centuries beyond our capabilities. The nanite systems, the artificial wormholes, they're even further advanced." "How?" General Tak finally asked, his question directed at Admiral Park. "How could your species develop such technologies while appearing so primitive? How could you hide this level of advancement?" Admiral Park's expression remained measured. "Necessity. Throughout our history, humans have been threatened with extinction, by nature, by ourselves, and now by others. We learned to prepare for worst-case scenarios. When our deep space monitoring first detected your expansion patterns 27 years ago, we unified our efforts while maintaining the appearance of division. Your constant wars, your national rivalries." Commander Jun began. "Provided excellent cover for what we were building," Admiral Park finished for him. "Our apparent weaknesses became our greatest strength. While you watched us quarrel over borders and resources, we built all this." He gestured to the defense network around them. "Together, in secret." General Tak slumped in his command chair. For the first time in his long military career, he faced an opponent he could not defeat through force. The humans had not just prepared for the Vexeri. They had prepared beyond all reason, beyond all proportion. "What happens now?" General Tak asked quietly. Admiral Park leaned forward slightly. "Now we negotiate. Not for Earth's surrender, but for a new relationship between our civilizations. one based on mutual respect rather than conquest. He paused, then added with steely calm, "And you will release the 16 worlds you've conquered immediately." As General Tak considered these terms, he finally understood what the humans had done. They hadn't just defeated the Vexer. They had redefined the very concept of military preparation. They had taken the idea of readiness to a level that bordered on the excessive, the unreasonable. They had shown the Vexari the true meaning of overkill. 6 months after the Vexari fleet's neutralization, the gleaming structure of the Galactic Cooperation Center hung in orbit around Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon. The center, a massive ring-shaped station with crystalline observation domes, represented humanity's first permanent diplomatic outpost designed specifically for interspecies relations. Ambassador Han stood in the main reception hall, watching as the Vexeri diplomatic shuttle docked with the station. Unlike the obsidian warships that had once threatened Earth, this vessel was smaller and bore new markings, symbols of diplomatic status rather than military might. "They're right on schedule," noted his aide, checking a data tablet. The delegation includes 7 representatives, including former General Tak and Science Officer Lee. Ambassador Han nodded, smoothing down his formal attire. "A good sign. The Vexeri value punctuality. It suggests they're taking these negotiations seriously." The past 6 months had transformed relations between humans and the Vexari. After the initial standoff, Earth had demonstrated both overwhelming power and surprising restraint. Rather than destroying the Vexeri fleet, humans had simply disabled it. Rather than attacking the Vexeri Empire, they had offered a path toward peaceful coexistence. The airlock doors slid open, and the Vexeri delegation entered the hall. They moved with characteristic precision, but their posture lacked the intimidating rigidity they had displayed during first contact. Leading them was a figure Ambassador Han recognized immediately. Former General Tak, now wearing the formal robes of a Vexeri diplomat. "Ambassador Han," Tak said, bowing slightly in the human fashion. "The Vexeri Federation extends greetings and appreciation for your welcome." "Former General Tak," Han replied, returning the gesture. "Earth is pleased to welcome you and your delegation to the Galactic Cooperation Center." The formal greetings complete, Han led the group toward the main conference area. Through massive windows, Jupiter loomed large in the background, its swirling storms providing a dramatic backdrop to this historic meeting. "Your station is impressive," Tak commented, his eyes taking in the advanced technology visible throughout the center, particularly considering it was constructed in only 6 months. Ambassador Han smiled slightly. "This facility was actually built 3 years ago. We simply kept it in a less visible state until now." Tak's expression showed understanding. More hidden capabilities revealed. The tour continued through various sections of the center, scientific laboratories, cultural exchange areas, and finally, the technological exhibition hall where the most dramatic displays awaited. Science Officer Lee, now representing Vexeri scientific interests, walked ahead of the main group, her attention completely captured by the technological marvels on display. Unlike many of her companions who still harbored resentment over their defeat, Lee had developed a genuine fascination with human innovation. Director Sung met her in the exhibition hall, where holographic displays demonstrated various human technologies, gravitational manipulation systems, nanite engineering, artificial wormhole generation, and other advances that had so thoroughly neutralized the Vexeri fleet. "This artificial gravity technology," Lee said, gesturing to one display. "Our scientists have been attempting to develop something similar for over a century with minimal success. Yet yours functions with remarkable efficiency." Director Sung nodded. "It was one of our more difficult breakthroughs. Took decades of international cooperation." Lee studied the display more closely. "Your species hid its capabilities so well," she said to Director Sung. "Why maintain the facade of vulnerability? You could have announced yourselves as a major power in this region of space. Other species might have sought alliance rather than confrontation." Peace through strength is an ancient human concept, he explained. We learn that the appearance of weakness often prevents conflict altogether. Potential aggressors don't bother concealing their intentions toward those they perceive as weak. So you used our overconfidence against us, Lee concluded. In a manner of speaking, Sung acknowledged. By appearing divided and technologically limited, we learned exactly how the Vexer approach conquest. Your patterns became predictable. Lee considered this, a strategy no Vexer would have considered. In our culture, displaying strength deters aggression. Different evolutionary paths, different strategies, Sung said. Humans evolved as both predator and prey. We learned to use deception as a survival tool. Across the hall, former General Tak was examining a display showing the complete mapping of the Vexer Empire. The information Captain Hyun's Shadow had gathered during its stealth mission. The accuracy was unsettling. You could have destroyed us, Tak said quietly to Ambassador Han. Not just my fleet, but our entire civilization. Your wormhole technology alone would have allowed you to strike at our core worlds without warning. We could have, Han agreed, but destruction wasn't our goal. Why show restraint? In your position, the Vexer would not have hesitated. Ambassador Han considered his response carefully. Throughout human history, we've learned that military victory without a path to peace is meaningless. Destroying your civilization would only have created a void for another threat to fill. Tak's vertical pupils widened slightly. The 16 worlds we conquered. They are rebuilding now. Some have already established diplomatic relations with Earth. Yes, Han nodded. And several have joined the new Galactic Council we're establishing. Your withdrawal from those worlds has opened new possibilities for cooperation across this sector of space. Later, as the formal negotiations began in the Grand Council chamber, representatives from 3 of the formerly conquered worlds joined the humans and Vexer at the table. The symbolism was impossible to miss. Former conquerors and conquered now seated as equals. Captain Hyun, honored for her role in the Shadow's critical mission, observed from a side chamber alongside Admiral Park. They watched as the diplomatic teams began discussing trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and security arrangements. Did you ever imagine this outcome when we first detected their approach? Hyun asked quietly. Admiral Park smiled slightly. We prepared for war while hoping for peace. This is the best possible result. In the council chamber, Science Officer Lee presented the first proposal for scientific cooperation, a joint research initiative focused on sustainable energy technologies that could benefit both civilizations. Our scientists have reviewed your gravitational manipulation systems, she explained. While we cannot match your implementation, we believe our particle containment technology could enhance its efficiency by approximately 22%. Director Sung nodded approvingly. A perfect example of how cooperation can advance both our civilizations further than competition. As the discussions continued, former General Tak activated his personal recording device. As both a participant and witness to these historic events, he had been tasked with documenting them for future generations of Vexer. His words would become part of their species' permanent historical record. The humans taught us the greatest power lies not in conquest, but in restraint, the true definition of civilization. He recorded, watching as former enemies began laying the groundwork for a lasting peace. Their approach to conflict represents an evolutionary path the Vexer never considered. By appearing vulnerable while maintaining overwhelming strength, they achieved victory without destruction. He paused, considering his next words carefully. Perhaps most remarkably, when given the power to eradicate our species, they chose instead to offer partnership. This challenges the very foundation of Vexer expansion philosophy. If the strongest species in our region chooses cooperation over conquest, perhaps true power lies not in how much one can take, but in how much one can give while maintaining security. As the first day of negotiations concluded, a celebration began in the station's main atrium. Representatives from Earth, the Vexer Federation, and the liberated worlds shared food, drink, and cultural performances. Scientists exchanged ideas. Military personnel compared techniques. Diplomats laid plans for expanded contact. Ambassador Han raised a glass in toast to new beginnings, new understandings, and a future where strength serves peace rather than conquest. Former General Tak, the architect of what would have been Earth's subjugation, raised his glass in response. To the species that taught the Vexari the true meaning of power, he replied, and the true definition of overkill. Around them, the representatives of multiple worlds, some who had been bitter enemies just months before, joined in the toast. Above them, through the station's transparent dome, Jupiter's storms continued their eternal dance, a reminder of the natural forces that dwarfed even the mightiest civilizations. And beyond, in the vast darkness between the stars, other species watched with interest as a new model of interstellar relations began to take shape. One based not on conquest and submission, but on respect, restraint, and the wisdom to know when overwhelming force should remain undeployed.